I love living in Middle Tennessee. We've got great restaurants, entertainment, sports, and one of the nation's top Ford dealers right here in our backyard. Two Rivers Ford. Remember that name. Two Rivers has been a staple in our community since 1983. They're locally owned. They have a non-commissioned sales team, and they sell below MSRP. They've been doing business with integrity for decades. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer.
Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. The Titans finish out the regular season on Sunday wearing Oilers blue against the Houston Texans. The League Company countdown to kickoff hits the air at 9 a.m. on Sunday. Titans countdown starts at 11 and kickoff with Mike Keith, Coach Mack. The rest of the Titans radio crew is at noon. Brian Callahan met with the media just a few minutes ago, reiterated that both Will Levis and Mason Rudolph will play against Houston, but said Will Levis will start Sunday's regular season finale. The number one ranked Tennessee Vols begin SEC play Saturday, hosting John Calipari's Arkansas Razorbacks at Thompson Bowling Arena. Tip-off is at noon. You can catch the Vol Network call here on The Zone. And Tennessee football got big news this morning. Per Austin Price of VolQuest, former five-star wide receiver Mike Matthews has requested to pull his name from the transfer portal, and he will remain with Tennessee. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Lines here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors, 615-737-1045. You want to get on the conversation? It's Fan Friday. Will Levis is your starting quarterback this Sunday. And when it comes to winning, where there's a will, there's a way. You like that?
Did you put him
That's
up to that?
Big J journalism right there.
Gosh. Man, that sounds like what you'd say. There's a will, there's a way. Well, that's not what he was saying 3 or 4 weeks ago. I don't know, man. I think so. But he did leave the door open, but I don't think it was for this. I think it was because someone said we need to open that door. You know how do you view Will Levis as the starter? Like how this came about?
I don't know what it says. 615-737-1045. We'll get your phone calls because I got a couple questions I want to hear from the listeners here. But I don't know what ultimately this says about their feelings on Will Levis, because he says, Brian Callahan paints the picture of, hey, he's kind of played through adversity this year. He's trying to overcome adversity. He's done this and that. We want to give him a chance to end on a high note. Well, if you wanted to give him that chance, why didn't you give him a chance for the last 3 weeks?
Oh, yeah, I know.
This is getting to coach speak territory. So I want to pose a question to you, Blaine, just real quick. I asked this to Easton on last night's Football and Other Efforts, where you can get it wherever you get your Zone podcasts. And I said, do you think the age of transparency with Brian Callahan is coming to an end? Because it feels like as the season's gone on, we get more and more coach speak Brian Callahan. Maybe that is because he's been burned by some of the things that he has said, or maybe it's just because he's kind of, gone through, the media cycle now for this season. And he's like, okay, well, I've learned from my mistakes. I'm going to be a little bit more strategic with what I say. Because some of this stuff that he's saying is very coach speaky. I guess you could say.
Yeah. I don't know if he's been burned. You guys pay attention a little bit more than I do. I just think he's understanding how far he wants to go and his limitations of what he wants to divulge or not. I still think he's going to be himself, though. I think that's being his authentic self is actually really, helped me hear what he's thinking and understand who he is as a person. So I actually like that. So I don't think he's going to get too far off of that. He did leave the door open. So if this did happen, so he can say that, whether it's in regard to what he was thinking at the time as far as why he benched him and didn't bench him, he still left the door open. So that came from an experienced head coach speaking to the media, which he was not. So I like that all about him. But I don't know. I kind of view it. Remember, when it first happened, when they said they were going to rotate him, I said, oh, this is like preseason. And then I thought, oh, Malik Willis now today after Will Levis is a starter. Remember how everybody got all big at the time? I said, this is not to say Will Levis or Malik Willis was better.
But you also said the same thing about Will Levis. You said when the benching happens, and I have to give you credit, you said it, that you would not be surprised if he comes back for the Texans game and maybe there's a little bit of trade bait that is going to happen.
Right. And that's kind of where it's coming from. And that's why I was doing the Malik Willis, because I thought they were doing it for trade. I thought he was going to be on the roster. I thought they were going to keep three quarterbacks because he deserved it. He was that good.
Right.
Obviously, he was good enough to be in this league. And so I think that's the same thing that may be going here potentially. And I leave that door open because they may end up having to keep him as the number 2. I don't know how it's going to play out. And then he could be even a better player, whether it's here or somewhere else, given the opportunity, maybe as he continues to grow as a quarterback. Right now, I know for sure he is a backup quarterback in this league, but I'm not going to ever take off the table, whether it's here or somewhere else, that he can potentially be a average starting NFL quarterback. We've seen him all day long. I mean, Simeon was a starter in this league. So,
Well, Simeon is, the mentor of Will Levis, apparently.
Right. Yeah, he put him over and had conversations with him and everything else. Well, he's a veteran guy. What he's got to lose? I mean, he's sitting on the bench just collecting checks. So, yeah, he's been there, done that. He's experienced it all and how it all works. So, absolutely, that's always great to have a guy like that. So, yeah, I hope he does well, but there's always a chance that Will Levis can be Will Levis. That means he can throw 4 touchdowns, he can throw 4 picks, and maybe 1 for 6.
Which one do you think the Tennessee Titans are hoping for? Because if there is the trade bait scenario, I mean, are we really? Here's the thing: is the ideal scenario, Blaine, the Tennessee Titans lose 35-30 with Will Levis looking good, so they can trade him? Like, isn't that the ideal scenario? But they still lose the game.
Well, winning is losing this game. I don't care how it looks, even if Will Levis looks bad. That helps, the trade value, but you got to lose this game. And I don't know how you really do that besides playing backups and, guys who, or you could say, you're evaluating for next season. So you probably start off with the guys you want out there, and then you kind of gradually start easing other guys in.
Well, Tyler Boyd is out. Nick Folk, Amani Hooker, Arden Key, Otis Reese, Tyjae Spears, Jalen Duncan, all out as of today.
Yeah. The only one of those I wish I could see, this is going to surprise you, Jalen Duncan. Because he came out of the game last week with a shoulder. I think he did have some form of a shoulder injury before that. Or upper body anyway. And so I really want to see if because the reason why I'm saying this is because the O-line coach Callahan is, I think, a believer in him based off his words. Now, sometimes it can be coach
I would say that you're right.
I want to see it because I haven't seen it on the field yet. Now, I see the traits in his athleticism, but then I'll see a guy just run right around him every time he's out there for any extended period of time. So I want to see what he sees because I haven't seen it.
Right. And we've seen 2 years of Jalen Duncan.
So I just I'm waiting for this great O-line coach, the best in the business, show me what he's seen here to believe in this guy so much more than anybody else. He keeps bringing his name up. And then I haven't seen an offensive line or just injuries in general. Offensive linemen usually hardly ever get hurt like that and miss games.
Yeah.
Like, this is rare, especially a young player. I mean, man. So this is a little shocking. So I wanted to see him play. I really did. And play a lot. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. So I don't know who we're going to have out there. We're going to have Sticks out there.
Yep, John Njoku's getting the start. Your pencil legs.
Yeah, the high calves. High calves.
So it's high calves. Is that what it is?
I call it high calves, which means you're really athletic.
Yeah.
But those are more basketball calves. That's not
Gotcha.
what I want my offensive tackle calves to look like. I mean, not stick.
Yeah.
They can be high calves, but they have to be thick.
You want them to look like, calves like, my 700-pound wife or something. That TLC show.
I don't know. I don't see that show, but I haven't seen it. But so this is, it's exciting. The interesting part of this is all about Amy Adams Strunk in the Oilers uniforms. Will she really want to win the game? And I think that's hard to, take in
Can
as
she
the owner.
separate the fan from the owner?
Yes, and it's hard.
We got so many questions I want to talk to you about this game. Let's go to the phones real quick. Let's go to Coach T, who wants to talk some football. Coach, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Coach T.
Man, fellas, you know what's going on this afternoon. How you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Good. You
Hey,
feeling pretty good?
Blaine, you already know I told y'all, man, if you guys would have laid down what I told you, I'm a little bit better than MGM, baby. 8 for 8 in this bowl game. I gave it to you. You could have had paid off, a couple mortgage payments and a couple other things, but, and the crazy part about it, I had to bet the stuff blind. So let's just say that if I get through this in 3 more games, I got a nice little hefty paycheck coming to me. But, I think that it was the media's fault. When I say I was talking to you guys about a week or so ago, because everyone lit the fire for Ohio State, right? They all talking about how Ryan Day was going to get fired and how this, Blaine, you're a player like myself. Anytime you're talking about firing a coach, especially one I love, I'm going to go through a brick wall for him. Then it's going to lift up everyone else. Now you got the freshman that's playing out of his mind. I think these guys are going to be very, very hard to stop. I have the Buckeyes putting Texas out. I had Notre Dame and Penn State, with Notre Dame putting Penn State out. Buckeyes in the gold helmets meeting in the championship, with the Buckeyes bringing it home, baby. Count on that.
The Ohio State.
The Ohio State. Thanks, Coach
Ohio
T.
State. Yes, sir.
Man.
Hard
This
to
will be
deny that right now.
here's the thing: is it's going to be really tough for me to find a path to. I guess I'm going to root for Marcus Freeman, if that were to happen.
Oh, you don't
Notre
like
Dame,
Ohio State?
No, but I'm going to root for them against Texas because screw Texas.
Wait a minute. You have to.
And I don't like Ohio State.
You're going to have to explain all of this hatred among certain teams and how you're making your picks here after the break. Because I don't understand it. It's almost like you don't like any other team.
I don't. I just like Alabama. I'm a true blue football fan. I don't like any of these teams.
Well, I mean, you got to pick
I'll
a
root
team.
for Michigan. I'll root for Notre Dame for Marcus Freeman because I like Marcus Freeman as a coach.
Yeah, he's done it for that.
Notre Dame, though, is traditionally overrated.
Why don't you? So why are you just
The
because
whole
Marcus?
Manny Te'o and Brian Kelly and all that kind of stuff, and Lene Kalua or whatever her name was. And they were so overrated, and everybody picked Notre Dame to beat Alabama and everything. And Alabama just whipped them, and I enjoyed it. So.
But watch this. This is not your typical last 5 years Notre Dame.
No, that's true.
We saw that last night. Yeah. So they that portal has helped them out tremendously. As we saw a hometown guy, Harrison from Pearl Cone, take the kickoff back. If you didn't know that, Jackson. Yes. Here to help them seal the deal with 3 scores in a matter of minutes within 2 halves, man. So I
have to get to that point where I have to root for individuals. Like for Penn State. I don't really like Penn State, but I'll root for Drew Aller and Tyler Warren.
Okay.
I won't root for, I got just screw Texas though.
It's because they beat Alabama last year.
Well, it's not. Alabama. Here's the thing.
Jackson,
First off, no, they're in the SEC. I don't want any of the SEC teams to win. I don't. This chanting the SEC is silly. I think that's the silliest thing in sports and silliest things that fans do. Texas is a rival. They're in the SEC now. Like, they're our opponents. I want them to do poorly every chance they get.
No, only poorly against you.
No, I
but
want
when
them to
they're
do poorly the whole
competing
time.
against other conferences, you don't want them?
I don't have that.
Please, people, call in 737-1045. What is he talking about if you're in the SEC, if you don't want an SEC team to win if you are an SEC team?
If it's not Alabama winning, I don't want anybody else to win in the SEC. I want them all to do poorly and sit at home with us.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah,
I don't think you're a true blue SEC guy.
Yeah, no, I'm not an SEC conference love. I don't chant the SEC. You don't hear other conferences do that. Like, these people got to grow up.
If we have to lose in the ReliaQuest Bowl, so do you.
Yeah. Come join us on the couch.
Well, at least Milroe's going pro.
Yeah, there you go.
And you don't even like him anymore.
Yeah, and he's going to the Senior Bowl. Ugh, can't escape him. All right, when we come back, we'll talk more about that. I have 2 questions for Titans fans coming up after the break, so make sure that you stay tuned for that because I want to get your all's phone calls, 615-737-1045. We'll also go to Brandon as well. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 1045 The Zone.
Zach.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors, 615-737-1045. We're talking SEC bias, I guess. Like Georgia losing yesterday.
That was like that.
That felt great.
He's so stupid. It felt great.
I'm a generational hater.
But you don't like Notre Dame either.
Yeah, I'm a generational hater, though,
So
Blaine. You got to learn this about me.
What? If you didn't like Notre Dame either, the Golden Dome.
I'm very apathetic to Notre Dame. But, screw Georgia.
Notre Dame hasn't
that's
beaten
'cause
Alabama
Georgia-
recently.
Yeah.
Georgia beat Alabama. That's what it is.
No.
That's
It's just
okay.
our SEC. I mean, why are we rooting for people that we hate during the regular season to do well in the postseason? What changes?
Oh, well.
Good for the conference.
At least, yeah.
Who cares?
The conference.
It doesn't affect anything.
Well, pride that the team that you lost to, at least they won it or kept going.
That's fake pride. That's not pride. That's not pride, Blaine. That is cope. That is cope. And we heard it yesterday with Jackson.
gosh.
He's just coped because, Ohio State whipped up, on Tennessee, but then they went on and whipped up on Oregon. So it kind of does make me feel better.
Yeah.
That's just cope.
Hey, we got Mike
coping
Matthews back, though.
mechanisms.
Yeah, you did get Mike Matthews back in National Nightmares over there. Let's go to Brandon in Westmoreland who wants to talk about Tennessee Titans. Brandon, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Hey, Blaine. Hey, Zach. I called in yesterday, and I was the one that said, can you be a Titans fan and really want them to lose?
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you how they need to lose today, and I was also going to throw a jab out there. I would root for anybody to win in college over Alabama. And what about maybe bringing Hooker or Dobbs to the Titans? But anyways, you can tell me that later. But so this is how the Titans need to lose tomorrow. So you need to tell both quarterbacks that will be playing that the best receiver for you is one in a Texans jersey. And you also need to let the DBs and defensive backs unlace their shoestrings and trip up gracefully. Put a little butter on their fingers, make it a little slick for them to tackle. And a field goal kicker just needs to miss every field goal and make it look like they try, but not try. And go Vols, and Alabama sucks. I'll talk to you later.
There you go.
My.
Here's the thing. If you're a Titans fan, are you rooting for the Texans in the playoffs? No. So why would you root for the SEC?
No, well, college and pro is a little bit different.
No.
So analogy doesn't work that way.
No.
It's not the same. I mean, it definitely, the fan bases are totally different, like in the styles of how you root now. Sometimes it gets convoluted and it does work, but that's typically not the same.
Oh,
you
come
know
on.
this. You
No.
know this. Come on.
You
now
cannot
you trying to excuse your craziness.
Yeah. Now, see, I rooted for Tennessee against Ohio State because I have deep personal hate for Ohio State.
You did say that, Dan.
So, I mean, you can do it, but I'm not going around chanting SEC, SEC, SEC at basketball games and football games and all that kind of crazy stuff.
All right. Well, let's get to this SEC.
All right, let's go. We got a lot of people that want to talk
Fandom.
about it. But to bring up Brandon's point, I also have two more questions.
Oh.
Okay. Oh, let's save them. We'll save them for later. Let's go to Steve, who's been waiting. Steve, he wants to talk about the SEC. What you got, Steve?
Dude, I've got to ask a question. Zach, how old are you?
I'm 39, about to be 40.
39. So you're not in the age category I thought you'd be in. I'm a huge Alabama fan.
I'm a young guy. I look young.
Yeah, well, so hear me out here. I've lived through the Mike Price era for that's bad. Okay. Now I'll say this too. I can understand your point about not rooting for the SEC. I totally get it. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I get both sides of this argument. So I guess my point is I'm a huge fan. Roll Tide roll. Hopefully we'll be good next year, but I just don't. You got to explain a little bit more how you root against the SEC.
Well, I mean, I root against them all year long. Why am I going to stop?
Well, don't you? Okay, so that's going to affect a lot of things, including the NIL and where people transfer and where people go in the portal. Go look this up. This will blow your mind. Go look up how many transfers Ohio State, Notre Dame, Penn State. Go look at all their transfers they have from the SEC, and you'll be like, oh, why are they transferring from the SEC? Mm-hmm. So they're transferring because they're second string. A lot of these guys were second string. They're playing up there. So you really want to root for the SEC in that sense.
I mean, I guess that's not a bad argument, but again, that's worrying about things that are out of your control. Like
I agree, but you don't have to hate them either.
Oh, well, I mean,
Right?
I'm a generational hater though. Like I hate any chance I can get, Steve. Listen, that hate train is not stopping.
Oh,
Dude,
man.
we got to go to a game together. We got to meet up and go to next year's game.
There you go. There you go.
Y'all have a good weekend. And by the way, I will say this: if you are a true Titans fan, sorry, Blaine, you gotta root for a big L this weekend.
Yeah, no question. I'm right there with you.
No question on that one, Steve.
Y'all be good. Have
You
a
too.
good weekend. Bye bye.
I mean, that's a sort of fair point, but I feel like that's also like you can't really control what the kids are going to do, even if they win. There's guys that even if the SEC wins, certain things, they still may transfer out. So, I can't hate a kid for trying to better themselves or try to get a play spot and try to root against. I don't know if he was trying to say that's why you should root for the SEC or root against these other teams because they have players that left the SEC. But either way, I don't really factor that too much into my whole situation, I guess.
Well, just listen to this. This is a fan on here, Greg Burton, on the chat. Zach, Alabama is the new Vanderbilt in the SEC now.
I don't know who he's talking to because he's not talking to me because he didn't spell my name right. So I don't talk to people who can't spell my name. That's on the screen that you're watching. All right. Greg obviously didn't go to Vanderbilt. He must have gone to Arkansas with that spelling. Okay, let's go to David, who wants to talk about the SEC. We got two Davids. So, David, I don't know which David this is, but you've been on the longest. So there you go.
David VFL.
There you go.
Vandy for life, that is.
Okay, Vandy for life.
Yeah. You're not old enough. Okay. Let me throw you my curveball. Okay. Back in the 70s, when I was growing up, this is what I saw on TV every Saturday after the real cartoons. Fat Albert, Pink Panther, and, of course, American Bandstand and Don Cornelius and the Soul Train Gang. Okay. I saw on TV, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan, Oklahoma, Nebraska, USC, UCLA. Every so often, I might catch a Tennessee, maybe in Alabama, maybe in Auburn. But did I say Notre Dame? Oh, yeah, Notre Dame and Notre Dame. And as a kid, I didn't know anything about contracts or conferences or anything like that. As a kid, I thought, and I was born, raised, and bred right here, actually, Mount Juliet. As a kid, I thought, well, maybe our schools down here aren't big enough or good enough to compete with everybody else. I didn't know, So years go by, SEC wins, they start winning and stuff. And before long, all these conferences, my opinion, start realigning to compete with the SEC. So for me, when Alabama and Georgia were playing for the national championship, it was a win-win for me, okay? So anytime the SEC can stick it to the man, whoever the man is great for me because it is a pride thing, but I understand where you're coming from. I don't like it, but I understand where you're coming from. So that's my take on it. You're just too young. See?
Well, I get what you're saying.
You don't like the history of the SEC.
Well,
that's why you become the SEC.
The history has now lost its meaning because, at a time I can get where David is saying, but now you have these people that are way younger than me still doing it, and they don't know why they're doing it. So they're just doing it because they want to do it. But I do have to say this, David. You started off calling yourself a VFL. Can y'all not come up with your own slogan at Vandy instead of stealing from the Volunteers?
Oh, no. I was saying that for close to 50 years before I ever heard any Vols say that. So somebody off the zone in the morning said that for me.
Oh, so you are the originator is what you're saying.
Yeah, they just kind of twisted it up.
Oh.
Being a Vandy fan is like being a Cleveland Browns fan.
Okay.
You just never know. But my mother worked at Vanderbilt, so they fed me. But my blood does not run orange. I've got family in East Tennessee, the ground turns orange about Cookville, I believe, and Lord have mercy. But I will pull for SEC.
All right, there you go.
Bottom line.
I appreciate it, David. Thanks for hanging on. That was a good one. Let's go to Kurt, who wants to talk about, I guess. So, Kurt, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Zach, I got to give you another viewpoint here. If you only want to be an Alabama fan, you need to go to the administration at Alabama and tell them to return that $15 to $18 million a year they get from the conference, because it all goes into a pool and is divided. So, there's reasons and financial reasons here to root for the conference. Be a conference player.
I mean, I get it, but maybe that whatever that may be, split up against all the teams that are now in the and we're talking
like $40 million in it.
Yeah, but it's very minimal. The more success they got, it's very minimal dividends coming back. You know what I'm saying? It's not like I want the SEC to have like 15 0-5 or 0-12 teams or anything. I'm just saying when it comes to these bowl games, more often than not, they're probably playing a team that I'd rather root for over the SEC.
Oh, really?
Yeah, more often than not.
Well, how do you make that big, broad statement with that? Because you just don't like the SEC? I mean...
Well, no, it's just that I hate the SEC teams. They're my opponents. I root against them all year long. Why would ever... I don't understand, suddenly flipping that switch. I'm going to hate the Jaguars unless they play the Ravens. No, even if they played the Ravens in the Super Bowl, which they can. I probably have to root for the Ravens, I guess, over the Jaguars.
Okay, I'm going to use your analogy, and then I'm going to put my take on it, since you try to bring the NFL in it. I can't stand the Ravens.
Yeah, I can't either.
But I will not pick them because they are the better team. I'll be like, nope, the Ravens are the better team.
Yeah, but I don't root for the better team. I root for
the better team are players that I like that's on their team. Like, I want Derrick Henry to lead this game as a champion. Some people would see. I do.
I can't do it.
I see. That's
and he's an Alabama player. Think about that. That's how deep my hate runs for the Ravens.
Oh my! Now I want him.
If he went to any other team,
he's an elite player to lead this game and a Hall of Fame player type. To not get a chance at winning a championship is devastating to me. So that's how much I would. It over trumps my hatred for the Ravens.
And that's your right. It does. Yeah. My hatred for the Ravens runs too deep for my love for Derrick Henry. And listen, Alabama fan, Titans fan, love Derrick Henry. I just hate those Ravens.
And the Jaguars feel the same way about our team. I mean, but I respect the Jaguars and felt like they were actually the best team over the Rams that we played. We just so happened to beat them every time. Yeah. That's how the cookie crumbles sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I just, not necessarily, I don't go into games rooting for the best team to win always because I'm a hater. I mean, it's just plain and simple. I'm just a hater.
It's just in your DNA?
It's just in my DNA.
Okay.
Let's go to Drew, who wants to talk about the SEC. Drew, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
I can't really say that I don't root for the SEC teams. This year in particular, though, I do want Ohio State to beat the brakes off of Texas because it makes the Vols loss seem a whole lot it just don't make it seem as bad the more times Ohio State walks into a game and beats the brakes off of whoever they're playing.
Just a little bit less hurt every time.
So he's like Jackson.
A little bit less.
Yeah, it hurts a little bit less each time. Thanks for your call, Drew. So he's got the coat mentality. But I'm okay with that. I mean, that's cool. That's your prerogative.
Yeah.
Let's go to the other David that's been holding patiently. David, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Yeah, man. First of all, I'm David, the real VFL. You know what I'm saying?
Vol for life or Vandy for life?
You hear me? Vol for life. I don't know what that's my first time hearing that.
Me too.
We got David on David crime here.
I never heard that either.
That surprised me. I was like, oh, he talking about me. I started talking because I thought you talking to me. But that's crazy, Vandy. But first of all, I mean, you got to control the controllable. So that stuff with the players transforming. Transferring. Yeah, transferring to to Big Ten teams and stuff. You can't control it. It ain't got nothing to do with nothing. But enemy of my enemy is what? Come on, man. Look, respect to your OG Blaine, but I agree with you, Zach. Come on, man. I don't want none of these dudes to win. None of these SEC. If we lose, we all lose. That's how it goes.
There you go. I love it. That's how I feel, David. I want as many SEC teams joining me because it's also a recruiting tool.
Joining you.
Ramon brings up a good point that he thinks it's different from college because they use that as recruiting. So when you're in the recruiting trenches and out there on the recruiting trail, you want to be able to have at least something to knock the other guys down with.
There you go. I just said the college and pro is different. You tried to combine them, and they're not the same.
I'm just saying about I'm giving another example of recruiting of why college.
I didn't use that.
I know you didn't, but I'm just saying Ramon did. I'm bringing an extra point.
I know nothing about all that recruiting. I went to Ball State, so it was just it's an academic school.
Yeah. Let's go to Reese, who wants to talk about the SEC. Reese, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Zach, I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, well, now we're getting to the good callers.
Oh, my.
I mean, all year long now, Zach, I like a lot. I am a Vols fan. Which, by the way, how's that first David even get VFL? Where's the O going?
He said he started it. He said he was talking about the wars of 1926 in the SEC. So I got to say that I think he probably started. He may have even started the SEC. We don't know what David did.
That's what he said.
I just don't think he knows how to spell because there's no O there. It'd be an A.
Yeah.
But anyhow, which by the way, side note, if y'all want a good laugh, I'm sitting here waiting for the wife to get off work, and this lady just pulled off from the gas pump, ripped the whole gas hose out of her car, off the gas pump, and then locked her keys in the truck.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, wow.
Kinda
That's
funny.
horrible.
But anyhow, so all year long I cheer against Florida, Georgia, Alabama. Why, once we lose, do I want to cheer for you? I don't care about that tiny bit of millions. We got enough money. I'll put another example to you. Excuse me. I'm a Western Kentucky fan, right up here in Bowling Green. All year long, every chance we get in any sport to beat Kentucky or Louisville, that's our main goal. Then when the tournament happens, you get these people who are like, well, I cheer for all the Kentucky teams. No, we spent all year long trying to beat them in baseball, volleyball, basketball, football, and now you're going to cheer for UK or Louisville? No, get that crap out of here. If I hate you 11 months of the year, I'm not going to cheer for you the other month. So you know what? You keep going on and hating Texas, and you hating us, and you hate everybody, Zach. I 100% agree with you.
Well, hold on. Real quick question. How about the fan then that roots for Alabama football and insert Kentucky basketball? What is that fan?
I don't understand that because here in Kentucky,
I agree.
Every time I give them junk about how bad their football team is, they go, oh, I'm not a UK football fan. Well, how are you a UK basketball fan then? I don't understand that.
Okay, I was just making sure. Okay.
Yeah, I don't understand that. I mean, if you cheer for a team, you should cheer for volleyball, softball, basketball, baseball, chess, checkers, whatever. And whoever you choose to hate, you need to hate them in every sport too. Zach, you're 100% on these people that are, I hate the SEC when I play you, and now we're playing the Big Ten. No, I want them to get pile drived.
Oh, I see you. Now, I thought you were a separate basketball fan, a basketball and football fan.
Well, I went to University of Memphis.
Well, I just
I'm not going to not root for the team that I go to college.
But then you should be rooting for them in football based off what he just said.
I do root for Memphis in football.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, you just always talk about your Alabama fan, though.
No. Now, here's the thing. I root for Memphis when they play Alabama. If they were to play Alabama in football, I'd root for Memphis because Memphis would be big for my school and my alma mater. That's just how I roll. That's where I went to school. I spent many, many great years in Memphis, and I love Memphis more than Nashville. And, I'm a big Memphis guy. But,
But you grew up close to Alabama, though, in the beginning. I want people to understand the history of how I got to that.
Alabama.
Okay, right. Yeah.
But, I look at it okay, that's a gimme game, right? Like, okay, well, you can win this game against Alabama. Well, at the time, this is when Nick Saban, so maybe now with Kalen DeBoer, I may have to change my mind because he may not be able to afford a loss to Memphis. But that's just kind of how it was for me. All right. Let's go to Lonzo. Yeah, let's go to Lonzo, who wants to talk to the SEC. Lonzo, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Hey, guys. Great show.
Thank you.
I'm with you, Zach. You cheer for your own team all year long. I don't care if Tennessee, Florida, anybody. I hate them all. I can't stand them. I root for my team, and that's it. I don't care about this SEC with all together stuff. If you ain't like that during the rest of the year, why one time?
Oh, man.
Yep. I'm in.
No pride for the conference you're in, huh?
Nope. I have pride for my team, and that's it.
Yeah, I'm with them.
Well, if they were trying to kick Alabama out of the conference, boy, I think a lot of people would change their mind.
Well, how sick of it was everybody of hearing about how great Alabama was, winning all the conference championships and then winning all the national championships. I mean, there are a lot of people that probably were not rooting for Alabama to win against Michigan last year that were SEC. And I understand why.
Oh, I didn't. We didn't. I don't know. Do you think a lot of Tennessee fans weren't cheering for Alabama?
I would think so. I mean,
what do you think, Jackson?
Well, Jackson's on the phone. Jackson's on the phone.
Okay, we have a Tennessee guy here. When Alabama was winning no championship, were you cheering for Alabama now that Tennessee was out that they would win?
Well, number one, and back then Tennessee was never in it. So, but no, I was not rooting for Alabama, not even a little bit. There was no part of me that wanted to see Nick Saban host another trophy.
There you go.
I rooted. Y'all played Mariota,
but you weren't cheering for the other team though, were you?
As Winston.
Okay, y'all played Winston.
Yeah, right. That's Florida State and Oregon.
Okay,
but you weren't cheering for the other team though, huh? Either.
I was not. I didn't really. I wanted a good game.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, so he was neutral. So he wasn't cheering for you to lose, though.
I mean, I wanted to see them lose in a good game. I wanted the most heartbreaking loss for Alabama possible.
That's every UT fan right there. No, you can't lie to me like that.
You know, that's because it's Alabama. Yeah. They
say, by SEC.
Well, he did say SEC, didn't he? What happened?
Yeah, what happened there? Let's go to Mikey. He's on with Blaine and Zach.
Man.
Mikey, yeah, there you are.
Brother. You know, you're coming at Zach, but you're the one whose reasoning makes no sense.
Oh, I'm logically thinking.
Let me tell you. Hey, Blaine, who are you cheering for? Who's going to carry the torch of the AFC South? Who are you pulling for?
Oh, man, I'm always pulling for the Titans, but if the AFC South is playing somebody else.
No, you got to support the conference, man. Listen, here's the deal.
I am supporting the conference.
Brother, no, that's listen. Most people, let me speak for myself, brother. Listen, Zach, I'm with you, honey. I got you. Listen, I'm an old man. I grew up Southwest Conference, Arkansas Razorback. That's not the point. The point is teams move. Conferences fail. Conferences chew up teams and spit them out, brother. So if you're going to support your team, you support them to whatever conference they go to. Have you realized how obnoxious Tennessee, Alabama, Kentucky fans are 11 months out of the... No, I'll give them 12 months out of the year. Wow. And all of a sudden, brother...
So where's the chant SEC come from? Why do they start that chant SEC? Why did that happen?
That's not the point. Don't deflect, brother. Don't deflect.
I'm not deflecting. Every school chants that.
No.
In the SEC.
Yes.
I'm from the Midwest, so I'm trying to figure it all out. Like what the passion.
I'm trying to educate you, man.
I'm trying to get educated.
People have one team in college, one team in pros.
That is not true.
Everybody else.
That is not true.
Everybody else.
That is not true.
I'm sorry that you live in that world. I'm sorry you live in that world.
That is not true.
I'm going for my team.
There are Alabama fans and Kentucky basketball fans and Alabama football fans. So that's not true. We all know this.
I got one question for you, Blaine, before we go break. Thanks, Mikey. I got one question. Are you going to go around chanting MAC at your Ball State and Northern Illinois games?
They don't do that because football is not a powerhouse like the SEC
okay, so
is.
what sport is? Like swimming or something?
There is not. I said I went to an academic school.
Well, I didn't know. I mean, like Mid-Atlantic or Mid-American Conference, what do you got?
No, we don't chant anything.
You don't chant anything?
No, we don't. You don't. No, it's not. But football and sports is not the number one priority.
Yeah.
Academics are. So that's why I said I'm trying to, I'm in the Midwest, so, we just go
You're
about
just a simple Midwestern boy.
Yeah, exactly.
Just trying to learn the ways of the South.
Yeah, because just all of it kind of doesn't make sense, Some people chant SEC, some people are Alabama, Kentucky basketball fans. Some people say, oh, no, like you're saying today.
I do agree that some of that stuff does not make sense.
It doesn't make sense. It go, man, what is right? I've never heard of anyone cheering for one football fan base of a school and then cheer for a basketball. And I'm going, what what the heck is that?
You can always find like the kid of the 90 that didn't really have a team, and on their bio for social media it says like Duke basketball, and they'll root for the Patriots and they'll root for the Yankees. They root for the front runners. And that's kind of
yeah.
And I think there is a front runner mentality here in the South at some points. When we come back, we'll close up talking about some of the SEC because we do need to get some Tennessee Titans. I got questions.
We should keep this.
I got some SEC.
Hilarious.
I got some Tennessee Titans questions for you guys too. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here at 105 The Zone.
SEC.
Cover
SEC.
2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors, 615-737-1045. I mean, we kind of just will continue talking about the SEC, I guess. I mean,
I'm winning. I'm up. I'm up.
You've had a little bit. I started pulling ahead. And then we had Jackson saying that, he did root against Alabama, but then he also said he did likely root SEC.
He did chant SEC.
I probably at some point in my college career he chanted that at some point or another.
Well, I think you did it more than when you was in college. I think I heard you say it the last year.
Maybe. But I take no responsibility for my actions.
Oh, my.
There you go. Let's go to Rob, who wants to talk to the SEC, and we want to hear from you. Yeah. Do you guys agree that are you rooting for or against SEC teams when it comes to college football playoffs and bowl games?
Yes.
Let's go to Rob. Rob, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Yeah, I'd probably, I guess, a little more old schooler. You know, where it came from was all the riders were from the north. So when the Big Two from Big Ten football was basically Ohio State and Michigan, and they would get ranked number one alongside Notre Dame or the Big Two out of that, and while the SEC was beating up on each other, then we'd go to the bowl games and win.
Oh.
So that's where a lot of that SEC chant went. Now, I can see where the newer, younger generation is coming around, and with all the portals, I can see where in switching around conferences, I can see where that changes. But you also, Zach, got to think about Alabama. If SEC wasn't so, powerful right now or the best conference, Alabama probably wouldn't have jumped FSU last year.
I mean, that is true, but FSU just plays in a bad conference overall.
Well, I understand that, but if SEC would have been a bad conference, just like FSU, Alabama probably wouldn't have jumped. So if you're rooting against SEC teams, then Alabama, maybe even another year where they had a loss and got to jump into the top two even back then because the SEC was stronger. If you root for them to lose and you want them to lose every time and not do good in bowl games, Alabama probably wouldn't have a championship or two maybe, or they didn't get in the playoffs that time or two. And that goes for all the SEC schools.
All right, Rob, thanks. I get kind of lost on that because obviously I'm not rooting for the SEC teams to be technically bad. Like, I don't want these to be bad SEC teams. I just want them to lose.
But then that hence means they'll be bad? Or no?
Well, no, not necessarily. You can lose to good games, and the SEC beats up on each other.
So,
and
what
everything.
are your thought process then? If the SEC is, let's say, 6-6 in bowl games, I don't know if that number is right or not.
I think they're actually worse than that.
But
right now.
let's just say that. So you don't. That doesn't bother you at all. You wanted them all to lose it, except for
it doesn't
Alabama.
really bother me.
But it bothered you that Alabama lost, though, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, my team lost, yeah. But it doesn't bother me that all these other teams lost or won or anything. I just don't want Texas to win because I think they've gotten a cupcake schedule, and they both in leading into the playoffs and during the playoffs. So
you didn't start with Texas just because they beat Alabama?
No.
Where did it start? Texas.
Oh man. Well, I liked VY. That year. I think it was the year where they really got my radar was the year where Colt McCoy and all that talk when he went down with injury and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so I think that's when they started losing me. And then, they get all pissy about the horns down and all this kind of stuff. Like, you guys got to grow up. I mean, horns down all day long, 24/7. I mean, they're just, I don't know.
What's insulting to a Bama fan?
Reading? See, I can make fun of Alabama fans.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Damn, you beat me to it.
Yeah. Because I knew that's what everybody else was going to say. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All righty.
Yeah, there you go. Tommy,
we got to get the last one here.
Yeah, Tommy, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Hey, Zach, I got to ask you a quick question. Do you have a brother?
I do not.
Okay, that's where you get lost. So all of us guys down here in the South, most of us got brothers. So me and my brother can fight against each other all day long, but we're on a playground. But when somebody else comes over and starts something with my brother, I'm going to jump in there with him. Exactly. So it's a family. Yeah. And we're an SEC family. And that's how we do it down
Well said there,
Now, Tommy, who do you root for?
I'm a VFL, a Vol for life.
I'm glad you specified because we heard that it was Vandy for life earlier.
No, that ain't going.
I never heard that before in my life.
So I went to my first Tennessee game when I was 14 years old. I'm 70. So I've been through the ups and the downs, the peaks and the valleys, and I've always been a Vol fan. And I've always been a SEC homer. You can call me that. It don't make no difference because they're family. And on Saturdays when I play them, when I play Vanderbilt, Alabama, and Florida, whoever, I'm against them with everything I got. But when the postseason comes around,
I'm an SEC homer. Let's go.
There you go.
Family.
I will say to Tommy's point, sorry to cut you off, Tommy. That was probably the best analogy and argument.
Yes, it was.
That was the best one. It was concise as well. I mean, he didn't have to go all the way around the world to get it to his point.
So did you have any rebuttal to that?
No, because I think that's a good sound argument. I think it's an imperfect argument, but I think that it's the best one we've heard all day of the analogy of why it's okay. But again, it's not going to change anything for me. Nobody's going to be able to change my mind on that. When we come back, I'm going to ask you two questions, and we want to hear from you, 615-737-1045, about the Tennessee Titans. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop, Zach Lyons here on 1045 The Zone. Hour 2 of Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors, 615-737-1045. If you want to get in on this Fan Friday and weigh in on the SEC, are you rooting for SEC teams once your team is eliminated?
It's just Texas now.
Yeah, it was just Texas. But I do have some Titans-centric questions because the Tennessee Titans do have a regular season finale if anybody still cares about that game. And here's I got my first question. Do you think any less of fans that want this team to lose? Because I think there are probably some fans out there that will say, you can't be a true blue Titans fan if you want this team to lose. What kind of fan are you? And I think there are people that are out there like that. I think there will be people out in the stadium, out in the stands saying they want that team to win and there will be sitting next to fans that want that team to lose. And it will be interesting to see. So I just kind of want to hear from the chat, the F&M Bank chat on Zone TV, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live, and also weigh in on the phone, 615-737-1045. Do you think any less of fans that want this team to lose on Sunday? I personally don't.
Oh, no. I thought we touched on this a little bit yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, the fan has every right to, cheer as they want to anyway, but if you think it's going to help the team, which I actually do. So, yes, and being a former player where you're out there and there's no way you can actually try to lose on purpose. So I think the only way that possibly happen is you play backups. And in this instance, they're playing their backup quarterback.
Technically.
He was the backup quarterback and now has been named the starter, let alone there's some injuries and some guys who are hurt or nicked up and they're not playing them. So we'll see how it all plays out. But to make sure that they get the better pick, oh, absolutely.
Well, and look at it this way. There's 13 teams playing quarterbacks this week, backup quarterbacks this weekend. Probably will shoot up to 14 by the time it comes down. And I guess, you're right. Will Levis is considered now a backup. So, it's interesting, right? So we want to hear from you. We're going to go Justin, who wants to talk Tennessee Titans. Justin, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
I want nothing more than the Titans to tank this last game. I've been a Titans fan ever since they first came here. I never missed a game, probably about the first 8 years with my grandpa since they played at Vanderbilt Stadium. I was there when they came back, and Blaine said he was going to open up a can when they came back from winning the championship. I was there. I'm that fan, and I want them to lose. I don't care. They suck this year. Point blank, period. Get a better pick. I don't see what the big deal is with all these fans.
Justin, while I got you on the phone, outside of quarterback, what's been the biggest disappointment of this Titans season?
You know what? I could not tell you because it's been so bad to watch. I've had every game on, but instead of watching it, I'm like doing something around the house or something. It's just on. Everything's just been disappointing all the way around.
I'm with you.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Justin. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of fans that call in and feel that way about this whole situation with the Tennessee Titans. Let's go to Amos, who wants to talk Tennessee Titans. Amos, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Hey, guys. I just simply want to say about the Titans losing this week. And so Callahan he's on point. So we need to lose, right? So that's obvious why he's playing Will Levis.
There you go. So you think starting Will Levis is Brian Callahan knowing that he has to lose?
Yeah, without saying it. Yeah, without saying it. I think that's what needs to happen, or that's what he's saying without saying it.
So what do you think about this question? Do you feel that everybody's on the same page because if you're the head coach, you really can't do that, or you're tried to do that if you're not on the same page with the GM and owner in terms of job stability. So do you think that they're all coming back?
No. I think that there's going to be some changes. Might not be major changes, but it's going to be some changes, just like some of the coaches is not coming back. And I think some people in the office is not going to make it back. So
gotcha.
I think it's going to be some changes, but not huge changes for where we can always say we blew it up. But you have to make changes in order to progress. I mean, it's been no progress, so it has to be changes made.
Gotcha. I appreciate it, Amos. So we're wanting to hear from you. What do you feel about Titans fans, or how do you feel about Titans fans actively rooting for this game? Do you consider them lesser fans because you are a diehard fan that has rooted for this team since its inception? You always got to root for your team to win, or do you understand where they're coming from? Here's another question, and it's a question I'm posing to you, Blaine, right now. And I posed it to Justin earlier. You know, outside of quarterback, what do you think has been the biggest disappointment on the season? For me, it's been pass rush. I think the pass rush has been utterly disappointing from how we kind of thought this would go as far as scheme-wise. I really thought we would generate more pass rush, but, I mean, it's been pretty abysmal.
Well, I said before the season it was going to be interesting to see how they implemented this aggressive style without an elite pass rusher. And that's kind of played out that way because I thought Landry was a really good player, but I would have compared him to Kenny Holmes in my era. Then when we got Javon Curse opposite him, and then all of a sudden, now you see what an elite pass rusher, that tells you that stats doesn't tell you everything. He's gotten 10 sacks most of the time when he played, or 9 or so. So, he was a really good pass rusher, but when you see an elite one that can impact the game in so many other ways, let alone it doesn't even have to be the numbers. So I thought that was one thing that was going to stand out. But where to start with all the things that you're disappointed in? Right. It starts with special teams. I mean, they've improved a lot to this point, but, man, it kind of put us in a couple games that you could say special teams were one of the main reasons why we lost outside of the quarterback disappointment. Injuries to high-priced players, as we were just talking about Snead yesterday, who would have been potentially maybe a Pro Bowl type level player. The run defense down the stretch has been very, very disappointing.
That's a good one.
I can't even believe.
And even early in the Green Bay game, the Jets game. Don't forget that the run fits on that.
Yeah, on the right side there. Yes, yeah. I was thoroughly now. The pass defense has been pretty good, but I think a lot of teams say we can figure out a way to run the football at least enough to be productive. So I don't know how much that really plays into their numbers, but they are up there at the top, I think, second ranked. We're supposed to have the best O-line coach in the National Football League. That has not played out to the way I thought it should. First of all, it starts with not diagnosing that you need a right tackle. That's where it all started in the offseason, whether that's Rand or that's the O-line coach Callahan pushing and saying, I can work with the guys he has. Ultimately, it became really the weak link as time went on. And it was a huge hole that has been there for the last 2 or 3 years. So I think you should have addressed that, at least had a security blanket for that. And that means a veteran guy who can come in and play both left and right, since you were actually drafting a guy who played right tackle in college, even though he played left in high school, just in case he had some troubles and maybe you had to move him to right. And then you had a staple guy on the left that could hold the fort at least good enough. So I thought they were, I was disappointed with all of that. And then one thing that nobody's talking about, because it really wasn't that big an impact, he was justified, but maybe I think he should, I don't know, having 5 tight ends. That was interesting.
We've talked about that a lot on this show.
And then scoring touchdowns more so often, especially early in the season instead of field goals. Been able to move the ball, but for whatever reason, the most disappointing of all the things I've said is the team actually always finding a way to shoot themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it was the defense, whether it was the offense, whether it was the quarterback, whether it was special teams, they were always finding a way to lose the game. And it just was discouraging throughout that. And then once that started happening, you start realizing, I've been in that chair and sitting in that seat and looking, then you know you're not a good team. You're not a good team when you continually lose. And they have some good players, and they have good enough players, and they should be somewhere there about a 6-7 win team. There's no way they should be at 3 wins, whether whoever's fault it was from the coaching staff to all the way starting with Levis. So those are kind of, in a nutshell, all the things that have happened this whole season that were very discouraging and disappointing and actually really surprising for me to see them at this low of low. And actually, it made me start thinking about some of the lowest of lows teams that since you've been in the Titans, I don't remember, like 2014, 15 or so when they won. You just don't, as a former player, it's just hard to, start thinking about those negative and horrible seasons, you kind of want to just throw them out and you don't even forget about them. You may remember your negative plays per game, but you don't remember about being on a horrible team. I know I was on one, so that was I barely can even remember those games because I was so perturbed and discouraged and disappointed and pissed off all at the same time. It was just you don't even want to remember the entire season. We were 2-14.
Yeah, I would like to, if I was able to get myself into the Brian Callahan press conferences, which is usually during when we're doing show prep and stuff, I would love to know, how he would grade himself on assessing the inherited roster based on what you saw in film early and how that affected the process of free agency in the draft. Like, they obviously saw stuff on film with NPF and Will Levis and Traylon Burks and all this kind of stuff that kind of influenced certain decisions that they made. And I would love to know, did they get enough information from the current front office about these players, or did they just fall in love with what they saw on tape and thought that, hey, in between the years can't be that far off because they've been under a well-coached team under Vrabel. Maybe they thought their progress would be up.
Well, how does administration up top have information about the players in meetings? Like, that is kind of interesting to me. Like, okay, the GM is never sitting in a meeting, so he has to rely on the coaching staff. Well, that coaching staff is no longer there, so most of everybody is relying on the film. So I don't know how you actually get that information.
Did he know from, I guess it comes from conversations with Vrabel and that staff, and also what you kind of...
But we're making an assumption that communication was good.
I guess that's true. That is a good point. I mean, as we're sitting here talking about, that's a very good point. We'll get more to your phones, 615-737-1045. Let's go to Adam real quick and wants to talk about the Tennessee Titans. Adam, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Yeah, man. I'd probably do what's best for the team. Obviously, you can't publicly say that or do that, but my thought was with starting with Willis. They're putting their worst foot forward, per se. But if Willis plays a good game, you could potentially shop him if you wanted to trade him. So it's kind of my take on the system.
Yeah. So basically, you're kind of like what we kind of proposed earlier. You want the Titans to lose 35-30.
Well, I mean, you want to do what's exactly, because you want to do what's best for the team, and we all know what's best for the team, but you obviously can't do that on the on the up and up. If that makes sense.
You can't tell people that because then you're going to get fined.
In trouble or getting in trouble.
Yeah, I agree with you, Adam. I think that is the best and the best way forward. When we come back, we'll get to Bam in Nashville and wants to talk Tennessee Titans, and we're asking you: do you do you feel any less about fans or down on fans that want this team to lose? Because, I mean, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of people on the radio that want them to lose. I mean, you and I among them. They say they need to lose this game.
I have one more request, though.
Okay.
From this staff. I'll tell you on the way back.
I like it. All right. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door, 615-737-1045. Do you think any less of Titans fans that want this team to lose? And also, outside of quarterback, what's been the biggest disappointment of the season? But before we get to Bam, Blaine, you said you have a request or demand?
No request. There's no demands here. Because of you're talking about all the disappointing things here that happened.
I asked for one from you, and you gave me 50.
I gave you a laundry list because it was a lot of disappointing things.
Folder.
I was stunned by it. It was, and some of it player driven and decision by upstairs as well as coaching. But for this last game, if we're talking about tanking, I'm going to say that word, tanking.
Put in Jaquan Jackson.
No. This is a proposed idea, and I really want to know what you think. Even the callers as well. 737-1045 The Zone. How about let the OC call the plays this game? Give a case study, because this could be one of the decisions you decide as an owner.
Yeah.
To say, hey, give somebody else the reign. First time play calling a game. See what he's like. See if you're comfortable with his play call. See if you like some of his new ideas. And then now you become that CEO of the team. Can you do it? Because I know you were pumped up and happy that you finally got to make calls, but you also had to do both duties. And he grew into it. But how about let that happen? And guess what? He's going to have some snafus just like you did in your first play calling.
Let's take it one step further. Let's have Nick Holtz call the defense. If you really want to let's have Nick Holtz call the defense.
And then that's
Cole
not
Anderson calls offense.
That is not in his title duty there. I mean, I don't know how Denard Wilson would feel about
at pass rusher. Chigga out pass rushing. He'd probably be better than.
So you're gonna let Denard Wilson be OC too?
Oh, he could be special teams. We'll put Cole Anderson at OC.
Okay, yeah.
There you go. Well, let's switch it all around. I like it. No, but I do think that's a unique suggestion.
Yeah.
Because why not? I mean, at this point, then you can see what you kind of got out of Nick Holtz, and maybe he could put something, out there to better his job situation.
Mm-hmm. Because there's something else that, would you want some experienced play caller on your staff? If I'm looking at it from the owner's point of view.
Yeah.
That way you have somebody to lean on with suggestions.
There you go. Let's go to Bam in Nashville and let's talk Tennessee Titans. Bam, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
That was good, man. Happy Friday, everybody. Everybody doing all right?
Doing good.
Yes,
how are you,
Bam?
Man, I'm good. Listen, I'm going to say this. I am, and Blaine can attest to this, I bleed blue. I literally bleed blue.
Yes, you do.
I am a diehard, all-the-way Titans fan. I've traveled with this team all year. I try to be at all the events, all the games. But I'm saying we need to lose this game Sunday. I mean, I really, honestly, outside of pride only lasts 30 minutes, man. Pride only lasts 30 to 45 minutes. After that, we got a whole off season of this. If we keep this number 2 pick and get the number 1 pick, that's going to last longer than saying, oh, we beat the Texans. And it really don't have because the Texans are playing next week. We're not. We're trying to put back what needs to be on the board. We could possibly get a great quarterback. If they don't even want to go Shador, you can get Travis Hunter, or you can get, the pass rusher, Carter. It's so many different things that we could do that's going to help benefit this team for tomorrow. Like going in, and I get it, everybody playing for pride. So, pride is also could be your biggest downfall too, man. I from a fan who loves this team and who sacrifices a lot of time, energy, money, resources, and believes in this team, we need to play for tomorrow, not this 4 quarters and up Sunday, man. So that's just where I am. I'm one of those fans, and if you got a problem with it, hey, whatever's whatever. But I'm just saying, you're not getting anything out of Sunday. That's all. So, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, and we can go from there.
Yeah.
No, I agree with Bam. And I think, again, that's another great point, a thorough point that covers, kind of lays it all out, talks about the future, talks about the difference in 4 quarters and 4 years for this team, because it's a pivotal moment for this franchise to try and find something they haven't really, really, truly found since Steve McNair, and that's drafting a young franchise quarterback. And that's they're at least trying to give themselves the options to do that.
Yeah, it's going to be fun times here, at least looking at the draft and looking at what direction they possibly will go, whether it's quarterback, pass rusher, or whatever it may be, playmaker, Hey, man. I would put it all out there, and I would be acting as though I'm taking all of them because you don't know who may be available. So at least if you decide somebody gives you a ransom there as far as trading up and you get another first-round pick, even if it's somewhere in the top 10, and you get 2, that'd be awesome too, even next year.
Yeah, let's go to Ronnie who wants to talk Tennessee Titans. More of your phone, 615-737-1045. Ronnie, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Yeah, thank you. My viewpoint of it is I'll pull for the Titans. That's great, but I'm really not going to be upset if they win or lose. My viewpoint of it is that this team can, and I was talking about the administration, coaches, and whatnot, they can screw up 1 through 3 pick just like they can any pick, and I think they will anyway. So it really doesn't matter.
So are you a clean house kind of guy?
I would be like if they fired the coach and kept Coughlin, I think they would be making a mistake. If they fired Coughlin and kept the coach, I think they'd be making a mistake. I think they ought to, if they're going to do anything, fire them all, and let's just start over. We know next year is going to be a rebuild, so let's just start anew.
There you go. Hey, he makes a good point. Something that we've also agreed on is, fire one, fire them all. That's where you need to go. Now, whether that's the best case for this scenario for the Tennessee Titans long term, you won't really know because you're basically going to be hiring people that you have no clue if they'll work good together. You have no clue if they're good at their job. At least you kind of know you have almost a baseline with both these guys being, established. But, we'll see how that kind of goes. Let's go to John who wants to talk Tennessee Titans. John, you're on with Blaine Zach.
Thanks for taking my call. Hey, has anybody talked about what changes did we make, if any, in the scouting? We always talk about the quality of the player, and, last year, and the year before, we had people wanting to be rappers instead of football players, and we had some that didn't want to play football because it was too rough, and so that's number one. Did we make any changes from the lowest scout to the top of the scouting chain? And my second point is, okay, so we need to lose the game. I totally understand that. But are we looking at the point of, okay, in order to lose the game, maybe the guys don't play at 100%. Okay, if they don't play at 100%, what is the first thing that could happen? Somebody get injured. And is it worth getting a higher draft pick to lose one of our guys? I don't think so. So I think we just go out there and play the best, and we roll the cards or the dice, and I think the dice are going to come up craps, and we're going to lose and go on. That's my thought. Thanks, guys. Have a blessed day.
Hey, thanks, John. It brings up sort of a valid point, but I think correct me if I'm wrong, Blaine, the players that are going to be out on the field are not thinking about draft pick or tanking. They're going to be playing 100% no matter what.
Yeah,
just that their 100% may not be good enough against the Texans.
Right. That's the whole point. That's why you plan to play backups. And whether you're just a half step a little slower or not as good of a player, there's a reason why you're backup. And so you play those guys, and they are going to play 100% because they don't know where their future lies. It may be with this team. It may be with another team. They know everybody watches, and so, everybody's going to be playing. Or some guys are incentivized, veteran guys who know they're going to be back, are incentivized by their incentives in their contracts. Some of them, they want to end on a positive note. They don't want to, think about, this horrible season besides their individual play, and that's all they can control. So, that's never going to be a fact. That's tough to do at the NFL level. So there's motivations all over the place, and you never want to get on film, even in a losing season, how you perform there half-heartedly out there being a veteran guy that's going to be in the league, whether here or somewhere else. So you don't want to get that on tape because then that kind of tells a little bit about who you are and your character.
Okay, so let's give you guys some quick updates on the Tennessee Titans, the NFL, just real quick. Week 18 features, this is from Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. Week 18 features a staggering 13 backups in line to start. Bailey Zappi, Joe Flacco, Jimmy Garoppolo, Mitchell Trubisky, Tyler Huntley, Josh Dobbs, Tanner McKee, Cooper Rush, or maybe Trey Lance, Spencer Rattler, Drew Lock, Aiden O'Connell, Carson Wentz, Mac Jones, and of course, on top of that, you could add, Will Levis if you want to consider him backup. So technically 14. So that's a lot of backup quarterbacks. On top of that, this comes from Justin Graver of Titans Film Room on Twitter. If the Titans do pull out a win on Sunday, they will move down one spot in the draft order for each of the following results. Ravens beat Browns, they move a spot down. Eagles beat Giants, move a spot down. Colts beat Jaguars, move a spot down. Falcons beat Panthers, Dolphins beat Jets, which would put them at 7th in the draft order. So just because they lose doesn't mean they automatically go to 7. All 5 of those games also have to go that way. Ravens over Browns, Eagles over Giants, Colts over Jaguars, Falcons over Panthers, and Dolphins over Jets.
Mr. Analytics, if the Eagles beat the Giants, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
If, like 2 of those scenarios happen, where would that push them? I mean, nobody knows.
That would be 4th.
4th?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so, you still want to be as high as possible.
You want to be as high as possible, but it's not the end of the world. Right. It's not just as simple as they win, they drop to 7th.
Right.
It's win at worst, they're 7th. So they could still be a little bit higher. Just on the injury report front, just real quick before we get to Lou, Danico Autry is out for the Texans. Fadukasi, defensive lineman, is also out for the Texans. Shaq Mason and Jeff Okuda, both out for the Texans, while Christian Harris and Jamal Hill are both questionable. Then, of course, out for the Titans earlier today, Tyler Boyd, Nick Folk, Amani Hooker, Arden Key, Otis Reese, Tyjae Spears, Jalen Duncan. And just real quick, so yesterday we talked about the bone marrow injection for L'Jarius Sneed. Brian Callahan went into details today. This information is courtesy of Teron Davenport and A to Z Sports. Separately, Brian Callahan said L'Jarius Sneed did have a procedure, the bone marrow injection, which can seem very alarming. He said they had to immobilize Sneed's quad to allow the muscle to heal, and the injection was done to speed the process up. Callahan said everything is solely the quad. Brian Callahan says the injury was deeper in his muscle than normal muscle strains, and added that Sneed is recovering well. So that quad strain ended up, I guess, going a lot deeper and a lot more harmful than what they initially thought it was. And basically they had to immobilize his quad to allow the muscle to grow back and then use the injection to help speed up that process.
Oh, wow. Never heard of that.
So a lot of science.
Yeah, a lot of science. But I always felt being a speed guy, a quad injury is much more impactful. As I said then, at the time, these things can linger for a while, and sometimes they happen fast, and sometimes I think can turn into a knot, into a deep bruise, and then it knots up, and then it will take forever. And you just never know. That might have happened. So, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that transparency really clears up that they kept thinking that, okay, maybe it's not as bad as we thought, then we have to get these opinions and then all this kind of stuff. So that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, no doubt.
And the fact that he specified that it was solely the quad means it's not necessarily related to the knee issue. So let's go to Lou, who wants to talk Tennessee Titans. Lou, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Good info.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I'd like to add a leg to our fellow companion Ron Slay's parsley coming up, I'm sure. Take Levis for an anytime interception. And then upon that, I'd like to know if you guys think that the crowd will cheer whenever we throw an interception and then boo when we get a touchdown. And that's all I have.
I brought that up last week, Lou, because I said, is this going to be the first game? I think I said this on Monday. Is this going to be the first game that we're going to have Tennessee Titans fans boo when they score a touchdown? And I asked that to Easton, and you both kind of said, it depends on when the touchdown is and what it means to the outcome of the game.
That's exactly how I feel. But that doesn't mean that some people won't during the game because they just want them to just fail so miserably. If it's at the end there in the fourth quarter to take the lead or something like that, I would imagine some of the boo blurs would come out.
Yeah,
for sure.
So we talked about a lot of things that this team has to fix and everything. And I wanted to get through, this rebuild. It obviously got off to a rough start. Shaky ground, I guess, on the foundation and all that kind of stuff. But there's I want to catch everybody up to date with some of the latest rumors that are out there, just real quick. This comes from Jeremy Fowler on ESPN. The Titans are 9-24 in GM Rand Carthon's first 2 seasons, and with the new stadium opening in 2026, the Titans want to find the winning track sooner than later. But this is clearly a rebuilding situation for Carthon, and people in the building say there seems to be good energy among Callahan, Carthon, and Vice President of Football Operations Chad Brinker, a trio that meets frequently on team matters. So there seems to be open communication. But what I find interesting, Blaine, one of our first episodes, we talked about the power structure. And we talked about that this power structure kind of keeps them both insulated to where you could fire one without firing the other in terms of Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker. Because, you could point to certain things that overlap with football, the football game, and the football aspects and analytics that, Chad Brinker presides over. But I think it's very interesting that whenever the mention of Callahan and Carthon, Chad Brinker is almost mentioned in the same breath 90% of the time. Is that, and this is all from national media and stuff like that, is that something that maybe says that, okay, this is a triumvirate of decision makers that are making the decisions on this football team and not just Callahan and Carthon collaborating, but it's really Callahan, Carthon, and Brinker making these decisions? Because, he's mentioned quite often for Vice President of Football Operations, way more than you hear of Parag Marathi, who is over in San Francisco. He's mentioned a lot.
I don't know. I'd probably you'd be better understanding that to me. I always had an issue with Brinker. All of a sudden now had a bigger title than Rand after he came in after Rand. So I always thought that was really, really interesting from the outside looking in. But I would say that it seems as though they're all on the line.
Yeah.
They're aligned together. So, so they all come in. They all probably do go together. If I was making a guess, I have no idea. I don't know anyone in the front office, and I don't have any of those guys.
Yeah, and it sounds like from all these reports, for the most part, it's like, okay, everybody's communicating, everybody's talking, everybody's on the same page. So that's a good thing, but that doesn't necessarily, none of these people really are mentioned are Amy Adams Strunken, the final decision maker. We're still waiting on that. Here's another one from Sports Illustrated that maybe echoes some of the sentiment around here that we've heard from local media members. The Tennessee Titans were so excited about Brian Callahan a year ago that, according to one person familiar with the process, the team basically wouldn't let him out the door, knowing that Callahan would soon interview at the homes of Arthur Blank and David Tepper, so Atlanta and Carolina. And with a shortage of proven offensive candidates on the market, Tennessee zeroed in on the former Cincinnati Bengals offensive coordinator pretty quickly. 3-13 season later, with a game still to play, we have reached a point where it's important to point out one thing. The Titans are set to complete the construction of their new stadium in 2027. You can actually see how close they are via live cam. With the completion of a new stadium comes immense pressure for a team to sell tickets and have a kind of known identity that people will subscribe to. This was absolutely the case during the gritty John Robinson and Mike Vrabel era, but Callahan may be facing an incredibly difficult situation ahead, needing to drastically improve a roster that has been done little to no favors so far during the Rand Carthon era. Carthon, too, could be feeling the heat for this in particular. That comes from Connor Orr over at Sports Illustrated. So, we've heard that maybe Carthon's on a little bit of shaky ground. There's been a few people that have kind of thrown that out there, like Callahan, we're more than likely he's coming back. Not so sure on Carthon and Brinker. We think they may be back, but they may not be back. So where do you, when you hear all this stuff coming out, do you just kind of like ignore the noise and just be like, because it's really out of our hands, and just be like, well, we'll find out on, Monday or Tuesday?
I have no idea. Where was your alignment on what you thought on the alignment of Brinker, Callahan, and Rand? I have no idea.
The way that they put out the structure, Carthon is in charge of a bunch of stuff that have to deal with actual football. Brinker has to do more with the traveling and the analytics department. Like, he does traveling, he's over the video people. I mean, the stuff that the game day experiences, stuff like that doesn't really coincide with what you really care about your GM in football. Like, you really care about your general manager.
So they're
in football.
separate then.
They're separate. Okay. That's how they've laid it out, clearly in black and white ink. Now, has that been how it's actually done in action? Because those are words.
Right.
In action, it feels like Brinker obviously is involved in analytics, which means he's over the analytics department. He's overseeing building an analytics department. And analytics is clearly involved in drafting, free agency, salary cap, which he is also over the salary cap as well. Drafting, all the game day decisions and all that kind of stuff. So analytics is heavily involved. So he's obviously still involved in football stuff, but as terms of final roster construction and all that stuff, that's supposed to be under Rand Carthon's job's responsibility. I mean, that's what they said, plain as day. But it seems like there's a little bit of a muddled mess here because everybody keeps mentioning Chad Brinker with every chance they get almost.
Yeah. Well, I think it's because of his title. So people maybe are not doing their homework on exactly what his duties are.
But there's also a ton of other people with that same title in different places, in other places that they don't ever mention. So that tells me something right there. Like, the NFL talks, they're a bunch of chatty Cathys. They love to gossip. That tells me that someone is talking something and that Chad Brinker is heavily involved in a lot of these decisions. And we can point to one decision that we know of because Rand Carthon told us, that he leaned on Chad Brinker's relationship with Kansas City and his ability to get the medical information, to negotiate the trade and all that kind of stuff to get that trade done for Brian Callahan. So just to throw this out there, devil's advocate, then what's the point of Rand Carthon? To just facilitate, to be the go-between between Chad Brinker and, Brian Callahan? Because a lot of these moves that you've heard, Rand Carthon talk about, well, I've really leaned on this person or I really leaned on that person. Where's the leaning on yourself? And I think that's a valid question with Rand Carthon is, when you look at the right tackle situation, right? Where did you lean? Did you lean on just Bill Callahan, or did you stand up and say, hey, I think we need to go do something? Where's right tackle on this list? We probably need a right tackle. Maybe you can get something out of MPF, but we need a temporary solution or something. Like, I would love to know the fact that national media people keep bringing up Chad Brinker's name. There's something to that. I don't know what that means, but there is something to that should not be ignored.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I'm right there with you on that, man. So, yeah, I think they're all going to be connected. I'm going to just say that.
Yeah.
If I was just seeing how Brinker came in, I'm pretty sure Brinker and Rand have a really good relationship, too.
Right.
So, now, as far as who's making the final decisions, as far as the roster, I would think that's more Rand. So, I think he probably learned a lot along the way, maybe trusting him, maybe a coach who's supposed to be the best in the business to kind of help him make a decision instead of doing what he thought was a decision. You kind of learn through it. It's just no different than the first-time play caller understanding,
right?
Head coach Callahan, of certain decisions, then trying to manage the game. So I thought it was a lot of learning from everyone across the board, which I think all of them are really good at their jobs, and they had to go through some pitfalls, let alone then compounded with injuries along the way and being first-timers. One thing that was always in question for me is with guys all being first-timers, from OC, special team, to DC, to play caller, to head coach. That's always a recipe.
And you could maybe throw GM in there.
Yeah, right. GM and Brinker and having these elevated levels of control. So, so that kind of compounded. I thought the decisions were good, solid decisions that they made. I still thought they would be a middle-of-the-road team. I think Bam was the one who I saw him, in the offseason. He thought they were going to be a playoff contending team, and I said, hey, man, I wouldn't go so fast with that. I would think they're going to be competitive. I think they're going to be in the middle. If they squeaked in and got a wild card, that would be a little surprising, but elated at the same time. They were worse than that, and that was way under par for me. And some of it was quarterback driven, of course, which this whole season was about learning what your quarterback actually could and couldn't do, and how consistent could he be. So that, once that happened, and then the season was pretty much over before it even got started.
Right.
Early on in the season with a couple snafus, not knowing that, throughout the way that he was going to have some other unforced errors. And then special teams let you down. Then maybe you made a bad call here or there. Then the quarterback misses a guy open. Then the defense can't stop the run. I mean, you start seeing all these different things. I mean, man, there was a lot of red smoke all over the place here. And who's pointing the finger at who? It'll be interesting to see who survives.
Well, and I guess you can say this for all of that you just described. We haven't had a lot of finger pointing.
No, we have not.
And at
least not publicly.
Right. Mm-hmm. At least not publicly. So, I mean, those stories tend to leak out when there is.
Yes.
And that hasn't been the case. So maybe that there is something, too, that they are all safe.
On the same plane.
And they're all on the same page. And then they are hunting together and they're all safe. And they're really just trying to figure out, maybe this is why Chad Brinker is so involved. They're really trying to figure out what works for the three of them, while also trying to build a foundation for the team. There's so much that they had to do. This isn't like, taking over a 9-7 team or a 10-6 team and taking it up at the next level. Because that obviously means you have a lot of good players.
Which you use that example because that's where Vrabel was.
Yeah, well, Vrabel did. The Minnesota Vikings, when Kevin O'Connell took over, I believe Mike Zimmer was 9-7 or 10-6.
Already a playoff.
And so they were already
They lost their quarterback, though.
Yeah, and listen, they had both of those guys got established quarterbacks. Marcus was an established quarterback, even coming off a year removed from injury. And then Kirk Cousins over at Kevin O'Connell. He had Justin Jefferson, Christian Darrisaw, left tackle as well. So he had a lot of things over there. This team didn't have that. So not all rebuilds are comparable. They're not all the same. And they're having to take a different path in this rebuild. And maybe they just feel that, okay, the three of us work really well together. We're divvying up the labor of trying to do this rebuild. You're going to work on the living room. I'm going to work on the kitchen. And you're going to work on, the master bedroom. But we're still building the same house. You get what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
And then maybe that's what they're doing. And they're just trying to figure out who can do what and what skill set. And really, that's what this whole season has been. It's a season of discovery. The results have been terrible. No doubt about it. But that doesn't preclude them from getting better. This doesn't preclude everybody from learning and growing from this experience, including players. Because nobody's going to want – here's what you can say about 2025. Nobody's going to want to go through this again in 2025. Not the players, not the GM, not the head coach, not the vice president of football operations, not the owner. So they're all going to be making moves to make sure that 2025 is at least not as bad as this.
But it can only go up, can't it?
No, it can always get worse. It can always get worse.
Oh, no, if they go over, that's the only way it can go worse.
2 wins would still be worse.
Oh,
you can listen, if I've learned anything from the Andre Dillard, the Dennis Daly, and that whole situation, it can always get worse.
I can admit that, too.
When we come back, we're going to talk about what the NFL has shown us about hiring your GM and head coach at the same time. This is a Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors, 615-737-1045, last chance for phone calls. And we've been talking about, hiring and firing and keeping your jobs, who's safe, who's not. And I kind of wanted to go and look at all 32 teams currently and how they hired their GM and head coach. Did they hire them at the same time? Did they hire the head coach first and then the GM came in later? Or did they hire the GM first and then the head coach came in later? So there's only 3 teams where the head coach was around when the new GM got there currently. And that's Baltimore, when Eric DeCosta took over for Ozzie Newsome. There's Pittsburgh, where...
but he was on staff, though, right?
Yeah, he was on staff, so it was a promotion.
Yeah.
Omar Khan came from Pitt, with Mike Tomlin already established.
Oh, gotcha.
And then Brett Veach replaced John Dorsey with Kansas City with Andy Reid. So the head coach surviving and picking their own GM, there's only 3 examples of that by current NFL regime. So current NFL head coaches and GMs on the 32 teams. So now listen, those have been proven to be successful, but they've been successful before those GMs got there, and they had processes in place and ways and I guess traditions and processes established that have been proven to be winning victories before
and successful head coaches.
Yeah, due in part to the successful head coaches. Right. Mm-hmm. So those are rare. So firing Ren Carthon to keep Brian Callahan, I don't know if that's necessarily going to lead to that same success. So that's kind of like something that we don't really know. Now, if you look at the teams that have hired their head coach and GM at the same time, those teams, there's 43.8% of the teams are like that. So that is, just so people know, 14 teams. They have a current win-loss percentage under those regimes, on average, 0.464, so below 500. When they hire the GM first, and there are 15 teams like that where they hire the GM first, that GM and head coach combo currently 0.507 win percentage. So there's not that. I say all that to say, all those numbers say, there's really no proven method that says hiring them on the same timeline. We have talked about it. I've talked about it. I've fallen into that trap. It's so much better to have them on the same timeline. There's really no proven track record that really says that. Because hiring a GM and head coach is like drafting a quarterback. It's almost a crapshoot. You never know what you're going to get, regardless of who's already in place, unless they have an established, proven track record, like Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh and Andy Reid. You just don't know what you're going to get. So right now, I would say I still root for everybody coming back, because I do think that typically stability leads to sustained success over time. I think the NFL has kind of shown us that year over year.
And, also, you can flip rosters pretty quickly now compared to my day. So you have a shot of rekilling it. Now, the major position is always going to be quarterback.
Right.
So how do they address the quarterback if they think they can turn this around and at least be competitive and somewhere in the middle of the road quickly, with some veteran quarterback, with maybe also drafting a quarterback high, or maybe second? I mean, I watched, Jackson Dart. I thought, if we can get him in the second round, I'd be cool with that. Or, hey, maybe later in the first round and we trade back and then we get 2 first-round picks and maybe he'll be available at 15 and you get 5. I don't know. So supposedly it's a weak draft. No elite high-level guys after pick 10 maybe that can impact rosters pretty quickly. Where you're, Pro Bowl level type player. So you just don't know. So we shall see what these guys are built on, because everything is going to be built on free agency in this draft class. And if they don't start off fast here, boy, I think they're going to be some slim pickings. They're going to be really tight around there after week 8. If you're not looking like we're going in the right direction and the product doesn't look a lot better, that doesn't mean you're going to have a winning record, but you better be very competitive and maybe you middle of the road, 4-4, 3-5, 5-3. I mean, they have to show drastic improvements, I think, with this next draft and free agency.
Okay, so the general manager of the Minnesota Vikings, I brought him up He's been there for 3 years. This is his third year.
Oh.
Okay.
How long is the head coach?
So same. They were hired at the same time.
Okay.
They have 12 players from the roster that year that they took over that are still on the roster today.
Right. Mm-hmm.
12. That's Justin Jefferson, Kristen Darrisaw, Garrett Bradbury, who are all 3 first-round picks, Brian O'Neill, Blake Brindle, and then a couple other guys, probably Harrison Smith, obviously people know, but a couple of guys that most people don't know. But 12. And they're in year 3. They've been flipped, and that was a good roster that they flipped to 12. This is a bad roster that they're going to be having to flip, and you have to have that kind of patience. Similar numbers for the Detroit Lions as well. So that's why when you're talking about regime changes and all this kind of stuff, well, then they're going to be flipping some of the guys that you just brought in too. At least here, you're going to have some guys and some stability and some that have a frame of reference for how you want things to be run in Nashville. And that's why you got to keep something like that, trying to build on it. Doesn't mean it's guaranteed to be successful, but more often than not, we have seen across the NFL that, 3-win teams become 7-win teams, and then those 7-win teams then become, 10, 11, 12-win teams. It happens all the time in the NFL, but you have to be patient.
Yeah, and if you are patient, then you get the results. That's why I said next year will determine, to me, where you go. Guess what? You still have a little bit of time, because if it doesn't work, because nothing is a guarantee, and the foundation starts having cracks, and then all of a sudden you're probably sitting somewhere at 5 wins and you're not happy with where you're at, then you're going to have to start having questions and doubts about we maybe need to go in a different direction. Yep.
Yeah. I also look at it like this, and oh my gosh, I'm trying to get my words out. Even when you talk about the bad teams over time, the bad teams rotate constantly. And then they maybe luck into a little bit of success. They get a little bit of peak. And then they make another change, whether that's a quarterback or a GM, and then they're tinkering again. The teams that tinker a lot are the teams that typically stay in the bottom of the basement. The teams that are constantly firing. The Tennessee Titans are having real easy path to fall into that habit if they don't keep these guys going and let them continue to build. Because I think it's so weird. People really bag on Rand Carthon or bag on Brian Callahan in certain situations, but they draw the lines in the sand arbitrarily.
Right.
And you got to look at a body of work. You got to look at what they inherited, what they've done, some of the changes they made, why some of those changes didn't work out.
But people don't do that, though. But they're not going to do it. They just look at the results. That's what we're here to do. To give them the teeth.
But that's why I think you got to have nuance. People are like, well, I don't care about your progress because, Buck said this. I don't care about your progress because it was your 3-13 football team. Well, that's not the way to look at it. That's not how the NFL looks at it. And we got to make sure that we bring nuance to this conversation. That's what Lucas was trying to do. All right. Final predictions. Titans winning or losing? I don't care about score. Just Titans winning or losing, Blaine.
Oh, they got to lose.
Jackson, what's your prediction?
Titans lose.
All right. I'm going Titans lose as well.
But you're going to give us a score.
Oh, I said hopefully 35-30. At least make it exciting.
I know, right? Make it fun.
Make us all, wet our pants a little bit in the fourth quarter.
Okay.
All right. That will do it for us. 3HL's up next. Has been Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone. In the meantime.
And in between time.
Peace.